What's up, NFL fans? Chris Miles here, back with another take on the wonderful world of the NFL as I see it. There is an old saying that freedom of speech is not necessarily freedom from consequence, and no one knows this better than former San Francisco quarterback Colin Kaepernick. At the time of this video, Kaepernick seemingly is having a hard time trying to get another job in the NFL. This likely is a direct result of Cap's silent protest by kneeling during the national anthem before games. This protest during the 2016 season was regarding racial inequality by law enforcement in the United States. The explicit reasoning for him not getting a job during this 2017 offseason are murky to say the least, but the obvious reason is that he is likely being considered a distraction due to his not-so-silent protests. With the recent help of Spike Lee and his ridiculous inflammatory comments, which I'd rather not dignify with a response at this time, Colin has apparently become a martyr for his stance. But is that really the case, and does he deserve to be barred from the NFL forever? These are 4 reasons why Colin Kaepernick will get a second chance in the NFL. Number 1. The NFL has forgiven more unforgivable crimes. Over the years, many players with terrible character issues and those that have either committed or have been alleged to commit very serious crimes, and more times than not, have been allowed back into the NFL with minor slaps on the wrist. Here are a few examples. Leonard Little. On October 19, 1998, Susan Gutweiler died from injuries sustained in a tragic car accident. There was a drunk driver, speeding, and he ran a red light, slamming directly into Gutweiler's vehicle. That drunk driver? Rookie Rams defensive end, Leonard Little. Little had such a cavalier attitude toward the crime that he had just committed that, according to the police report, he said of Susan Gutweiler, "The lady ran a yellow light and hit me, wrecking my $45,000 car." Talk about your screwed up priorities. Now, Little pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 90 days in the city workhouse, 4 years probation, and 1,000 hours of community service. What did the NFL give him? Well, they suspended him for the first 8 games of the 1999 season. Now, the whole point of us bringing this up is to show that he continued to play in the NFL. And he played well, in fact. He was selected to the Pro Bowl and selected to the All-Pro team and won a Super Bowl with St. Louis in 1999. Ben Roethlisberger. With allegations that no one really ever seems to talk about anymore, Ben Roethlisberger was accused twice of sexual assault. In July 2009, Andrea McNulty filed a civil suit against Roethlisberger and 8 employees of the Harrah's Hotel in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. The suit alleged that Roethlisberger had raped McNulty in his room at the hotel in July of 2008. The suit also alleged that the 8 employees aided in covering up the sexual assault. In March of 2010, an anonymous college student alleged that Roethlisberger raped her in a bathroom stall in the back of a nightclub. According to the police report, she met Roethlisberger at the bar, and later he bought shots for the alleged victim. Roethlisberger's bodyguard led her into a back room, which Roethlisberger then entered, shut the door behind him, and raped her and left. 3 of her friends gave statements to the police department that supported the accuser's story. Now, even though Roethlisberger was cleared of the allegations in both instances, the circumstances regarding such was shady, to say the least. Shady enough that even with the loose morals that the NFL had at the time, they still found it necessary to suspend him for 6 games, even though it was later reduced to 4, to start the 2010 NFL season. Again, the whole point of us bringing this up is to continue to show that the NFL allowed him to continue to play. After the allegations that led to the suspension, he came back and played 6 more seasons and actually remains active today, appearing in another Super Bowl in 2010 and setting career highs in passing yards during that time. Ray Lewis. In 2000, Lewis was accused of the stabbing murders of 2 men following a post-Super Bowl party. He interrupted the trial by pleading guilty to the misdemeanor and agreed to testify against his co-defendants. You can argue that he is a snitch just to save his own butt, because the night of the stabbings, he was quoted as saying, "I am not trying to end my career like this." Now, even though he was originally charged with 2 counts of murder, he eventually pled guilty to the misdemeanor. For his punishment, Lewis received 1 year probation and a $250,000 fine by the NFL. Again, the whole point of us bringing this up is just to show that Ray Lewis continued to play in the NFL. In fact, 12 more seasons, putting together a Hall of Fame career, winning 2 Super Bowls, and becoming a respected figure in the NFL and in the media. So I bring up these guys not to rehash old stories, but just to prove the point that there are some individuals with extreme character issues that continue to play in the NFL, despite their dark pasts. I am here to tell you that Colin Kaepernick is no criminal. In fact, not even being linked to any type of criminal activity at all. It's quite the opposite, in fact. You can log this into the things no one ever talks about category, but Colin Kaepernick is actually a philanthropist. He has donated over 60 tons of food to Somalia, $50,000 a month to Meals on Wheels, $50,000 a month to the Standing Rock Sioux Indian tribe. Many people do these kinds of things to make up for the selfish individuals that they really are, or just for the tax break. But if it wasn't for research that we made, no one would ever know that Colin Kaepernick was doing these things. In fact, in December 2016, Kaepernick won the Len Eschmont Award, an award given to a 49er who best exemplifies inspiration and courageousness. Now, if the team, meaning the players, were totally objecting to Colin's actions that began in the preseason, they definitely would not have given him an award at the end of a season. That showed that even though some may not have agreed, they backed their football brethren. Now, the fact that Kaepernick has to endure being blackballed by the league when others in the past, present, and I'm sure in the future are getting away with far worse crimes is definitely egregious and unwarranted. Number 2, Colin Kaepernick still has talent. Now, let's do a simple comparison. Quarterback number 1 has a 54% completion percentage, 6 touchdowns versus 6 interceptions, a rating of 72.3. Quarterback number 2 has 57% completion percentage, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, a rating of 81. And quarterback number 3, 57% completion rating, 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, rating of 83. Now, all 3 of these quarterbacks has a record combined of 2-7 in a league that is built around making the quarterback look good. These 3 quarterbacks, Geno Smith, Josh McCown, and Mike Glennon. Do you know what all these players have in common? They all still have jobs in the NFL. Colin Kaepernick, on the other hand, let's look at his stat line. 60% completion percentage, 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a rating of 91, almost 500 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns. We haven't even gotten to his 4-2 playoff record, a record that should actually be 5-1 with a Super Bowl victory if it wasn't for Jim Harbaugh's Pete Carroll-esque decision to pass on a 4th and 1 in Super Bowl 47 rather than handing the ball off to an electric Frank Gore at the time. Now, to add fuel to the fire, at one point Colin Kaepernick was considered the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. Do you remember that 2013 divisional playoff game against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers? That game included an outstanding 56-yard touchdown run. He went on to finish that game with nearly 200 yards rushing and over 260 yards passing. Now, I know this is all in the past, and there is no guarantee that he can even come close to putting up these numbers and performances ever again. But you can be sure that he has a much better chance at doing it than the collection of garbage other NFL teams are continuing to employ at the quarterback position. Which leads me to point number 3. It only takes one team to say yes. It's true that at this point in the offseason, a lot of teams are not even looking for a QB, but there are a handful that actually are. Most of them hope to fill that gap in the 2017 annual selection meeting, or what we know it as the NFL draft. But this draft is not very deep at quarterback, because after Mitchell Trubisky and Deshaun Watson, there is a pretty stark drop-off in quarterback talent. So once this pipe dream is over on April 30th, teams will be clamoring for a QB. And if they aren't looking for a starter, nearly the entire league can use at least a serviceable backup or a quarterback that can put butts in the seats. You see, we are in a league where we have owners such as Bob McNair, Dan Snyder, and Jimmy Haslam. And to these guys, sometimes, or most times, wins are not always the priority. To them, money and headlines are the priority because at the end of the day, business is just that, business. And these teams are investments and they need to yield returns on their investments. Teams like the Browns, Jets, and Jags are looking for anything to fill empty seats, sell jerseys, and other team gear. Bringing in a player as polarizing as Colin Kaepernick corners a particular section of the market. A section of the market that definitely can yield dividends. With that said, Kaepernick can still get a job regardless of his talent, regardless of his so-called radioactivity. Why? Because NFL franchises divvy up into two main categories. One, teams that want to win, and two, teams that want to make money. In a perfect world, your team can do both. But there are many reasons why Kaepernick deserves another shot in the NFL, but it is very possible that it can only be facilitated by the greed of a prospective single NFL owner. Number 4, freedom of speech is discouraged. Remember when you were a kid and you came home to tell your parents how you thought you had a crush on one of your classmates, after which they decided to launch into a very uncomfortable and painstakingly awful birds and the bees talk? How did that feel the next time you wanted to confide in them? You probably didn't, because no one wants to live through that again. You see, the same principle applies here. Kaepernick expressed a concern to millions of people on live television and in front of tens of thousands in a stadium, and the results have been nothing but threats and heartaches and potential loss of income from Kaepernick's perspective. No wonder he came out recently saying that he would never do it again. But the fact remains that when you look at the protests, it took a lot of courage to do what he did. When will a player ever want to express himself again, seeing what happened to Kaepernick? Even NFL superstar players cannot get away with it. Collectively, the NFL and its teams cannot afford to allow a peaceful and silent demonstration of protest be met with such fervent hostility. In closing, Colin was not shy about his beliefs either. You see, at a players-only meeting where he invited teammates to actually grill him on his stance, he was actually able to change the minds of some of those in the room, namely center Dan Kilgore. Kilgore stated, and I quote, "After Cap stated his case today and seeing where he is coming from, I do stand with Cap when he says enough is enough against crime and against violence and against discrimination and racism." Kilgore went on to say, "I believe also that enough is enough, but I could see why people would think that it's bad with the national anthem in the military." And actually, that's where this whole issue lies, the seemingly blatant disrespect of the United States. But that is not what this is. Protests are just that, protests. They are supposed to be messy. They are supposed to ruffle feathers. Protests are supposed to make people uncomfortable. Otherwise, it probably wasn't an effective protest. Many argue that Colin abused his stature in the world, but you no doubt could agree that if an African-American bus driver named Joe Average tried the same stunt while being in attendance at a preseason game, the awareness toward racial inequality would be the exact same it has always been for decades. Now, I am not here to jump on my soapbox regarding this touchy subject, but I am here to definitively say that both sides of the issue are wrong. In a perfect world, Colin shouldn't be crucified for his stance. But in that same perfect world, this stance wouldn't need to be expressed to begin with. At the end of the day, Colin Kaepernick did what he did, and it is in the past. And whether or not it is because he's looking for a job or not, he's definitely vowed never to do it again. His point was made. People, let's move on and see how we can make this world a better place one day at a time with the information that we have. I understand that teams don't want the distraction, but if there's one thing that Colin has proven thus far, is that he can take the criticisms, he can take the threats, he can handle his own. We just have to allow him to. Colin will be nothing but an asset to a team, providing leadership and showing what it actually means to stand up for something that you believe in. In terms of play, he may not be a starter anymore, but he is definitely a legitimate backup. As always, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to smash that like button. If you think I nailed the topic and Colin Kaepernick definitely deserves another chance in the NFL, be sure to let me know in the comments. If you think I'm way off and just plain wrong, also let me know in the comments. I will try my best to respond to as many as possible. Be sure to hit that subscribe button as well as the little bell next to it so that you can be alerted the next time I drop a video on the channel. Thanks a lot, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.